Although the fictional world of Assassin's Creed tells us that the assassins were always one step ahead of the Templars and won almost all battles, when we look at history, we realize that most Templars were real and were some of the most powerful men and women of their time. We are talking about kings, dukes, and billionaires, and they were all of that centuries ago, which means essentially these were the real game changers of their time. Now, what do I mean when I say powerful? Authority and supremacy over not just the place that they were in charge of or ruled, but we are gonna gauge them based on the amount of influence they held over the worldwide political realm. You know, the kind of people that can make one move and change the course of history. And since I started the Templar series, I'm beginning to realize that the assassins were broke as fools, or more or less just puppets to the Isus, and despite earlier iterations suggesting that all Templars were outright evil, we have thankfully gotten terrifically written characters like HAYTHAM, KENWAY, and George Monroe who really put forth the best side of the Templars, and they also showed us that even powerful men could be good. Well, at least a little bit nice, if not all out good. And for this video, I'll be taking the Assassin's Creed versions of the characters while considering important achievements of their real life counterparts to rank them. After all, it is an Assassin's Creed video. One more thing, my last Templar video didn't include Shay, and many people asked me as to why he was missing.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
So let me make it clear, this is more of a who was the most powerful antagonist video, so I hope all the questions are answered. Also, these are just opinions of one man, so this isn't the list, it's just what I could deduce. I certainly could be wrong. Now before we start with the list, if you like Assassin's Creed videos, subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoy the video, please leave a like, it helps tremendously. It's free, it's easy, support a brother from the Creed. Now let's get on with the list. Number 11, Bartholomew Roberts. The man didn't care one iota about what happened or went on in the world. He was carefree and lived every day like it was his last. The Assassin's Creed version of the real-life Black Bart was convinced that he was born in the wrong era to be reunited with Juno. So the guy was looking for ways to, quite simply put, have fun while it lasts. That doesn't mean he's a pushover, because he did have a large fleet and was a feared man in the West Indies, but when compared to the others on the list, Bartholomew just fades away as a footprint in history. Next, number 10, Laureano Torres. The Spaniard, who's also a Knight of Santiago, was a mighty influential person of his time. He was the governor of La Florida from 1693 to 1699, the governor of Cuba on two separate occasions, first from 1708 to 1711, then from 1713 to 1716. During his time in La Florida, he oversaw and completed the construction of the Castello San Marcos, located in the city of St. Augustine, and when he oversaw Cuba, it was the golden age of pirates. So it was basically a looting hotspot for all the naval criminals across the world at the time. He is fairly low on the list, but the man was a key piece in not just Assassin's Creed history, but world history in general, because of his contributions to finding the observatory, which was something the Templars desired control of desperately. But dialing down and ending the golden age of piracy, that's what he's best known for. Next, number 9, Francois Thomas Germaine. If we took into account the real life Germaine, he would barely be at the last spot, because in reality he was just another silversmith that worked for the King of France from time to time, and at one point he also declared bankruptcy, so not that powerful, yeah. But Unity's version is a different breed altogether, because not only did he garner enough power and influence to take out a long-serving Templar Grandmaster, but also had a big part of the French infrastructure in his pocket. From famous socialites like Marie Antoinette to men who ran the underworld like Leroy the Thun, aka the Beggar King, they were all working for Germaine. He was pretty powerful in his heyday, no two ways about it. Next, number 8, Al-Mualim. If we took into account individual personalities, the former mentor would take one of the top spots, because Al-Mualim was a man with a laser focus, and as far as influence goes, he had plenty of that, no doubt. I mean, he did control the entire assassin brotherhood for decades, which essentially means he had exceptionally trained and highly skilled killers at his disposal, who would have taken out any target without a second thought and given their lives for him without question. Now that kind of power is priceless, it can't be bought or sold. He built the Brotherhood in a way where his word was absolute, and despite him turning traitor at the end of Assassin's Creed 1, Al-Mualim was easily one of the most powerful men in the world, simply on the brawn of having assassins as his personal soldiers. Talk about inspiring fear. Next, number 7, Aspasia. With a heavy heart, I'll be including Aspasia, the main antagonist of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, in the list. She was no Templar, she was barely a threat to Cassandra, and as far as being the main villain goes, Aspasia would be the weakest. But if you take the cult of Cosmos into consideration and all that they have done over the many years, it would suggest that this woman was mighty powerful. They secretly bred the Peloponnesian War and created the perfect grounds for Athenians and Spartans to tear each other apart. The cult is said to have infiltrated every sector of the Greek society, which means Aspasia had fingers in all pies, but the reason she sits so low on the list is because said power is barely translated on screen. It's one thing to tell people someone is scary, it's another thing entirely to make them feel it. Remember how HAYTHAM, KENWAY and RODRIGO BORGIA had that aura of possessing extreme political might? Aspasia just didn't give out those vibes. So I'll go with what I saw, not what I was told. Next, number 6, Prince AHMET, the man who was inconsequential. Despite being an Ottoman prince, which automatically entails money beyond our wildest imagination and substantial power, what AHMET did not possess, however, was a personality to sustain and grow said power. He wasn't respected by his own commanders, was barely a thorn in Ezio's side, and his dreams and aspirations were all stuck on an artifact that only Desmond's DNA could unlock. So basically, his whole plan was redundant from the very beginning, and yet he lands on the 6th spot because of the heritage and the family name. An Ottoman prince is no small deal. Next, number 5, CRAWFORD STARRICK. This handlebar mustached villain would always pop up in my head when I think underwritten. By the way, have you seen my list of the most terribly underwritten characters in Assassin's Creed? If you're interested, the link's above. And talking about this man who was a multi-millionaire industrialist of his time and was sitting at the very top of the most prominent city in the world at the time, it's safe to assume that Starrick was a juggernaut. Think about it, he controlled the queen in the political chess game of the era, which would automatically grant him influence beyond comprehension. But he too suffered from poor writing and worse execution, but the position and the power he held propels him to the 5th spot. Next, number 4, HAYTHAM KENWAY. While people like STARRICK and GERMAINE were trying to control a city with barely any results, HAYTHAM KENWAY was ruling over the power scene of America for decades, and he makes you feel it. The power of absolute belief. This man was power and influence personified, and the way he handled business, it's terrifying as it is inspiring. HAYTHAM had control over most aspects of the American Revolution for the longest time, from trade to the army, both the British and the Patriots, the finance, politics, he covered every factor like clockwork. You know, it's really rare that someone has everything under control for as long as HAYTHAM did, and if Connor hadn't come along, HAYTHAM would be ruling the entirety of America from behind the scenes. What a man he was. Next, number 3, Rodrigo BORGIA. Legacy, that's what Rodrigo reminds me of. Talk about being a leader with an unshakable vision. Rodrigo's word at one point was the law, and although he took a backseat to CESARE in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, he was still exercising his will over Italia secretly. If I was around BORGIA Sr., I'd be pissing my pants. Because not only did he not take no for an answer, he would punish failures terribly. Gruesome, certain death. Remember Jacopo de Pazzi? Yeah, I thought so. And there are so many cases like Jacopo. If someone didn't fit into his plans, they would be eliminated. And it didn't matter whether you were a nobleman or a doge. A political mastermind with the willpower and intestinal fortitude required to do anything he sets his mind to. Next, number 2, Cesare Borgia. If Niccolo Machiavelli was afraid of and admiring someone at the same time, that man must be extraordinary. And Cesare was every bit that extraordinary man. He was an amplified Rodrigo. He was Rodrigo's son after all, and the son in this case outdid the father. These are men that would stop at nothing to achieve their goals. Cesare, as Machiavelli said, was a man who knew neither fear nor fatigue. And unlike most others on this list, Cesare didn't infiltrate the government at every level because he was the government, the ruler of Rome, and he had his sights set on the entirety of Italy. I'm convinced that if Ezio didn't intervene, Cesare would have taken over Italia in a matter of years, and then maybe set out to conquer the rest of the world. And I feel even that would be in the realm of possibility for this ferocious son of a bitch. And now, number 1, Julius Caesar, the man who led the rise of the Roman Empire. Talk about people who caused everlasting waves in the ocean of history, a political mastermind, a fierce battle general, and a man who made every move for the sake of power. From secretly assisting the Order of Ancients to bedding Cleopatra, every move he ever made was to get to the very top. And although his reign was short-lived, as he was assassinated almost immediately, Julius Caesar still remains at the top spot because he was a force to be reckoned with for a majority of his life. And he also remains as one of the most prominent and recognizable people in real history. So it only makes sense that he's number 1. And with that, we reach the end of the video, guys. Don't forget to tell me what you thought of the video. Do you like it? Do you agree with it? Or is your list completely different from mine? Also, subscribe to the channel for more such content. On that note, I'll take your leave. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay tuned, my friends. It's your boy VZX signing out.